This was an amazing execution of probably the largest humanitarian crisis that we witnessed in the city in our lifetime.
We call it a humanitarian crisis because that's how people experienced it.
Mayor Eric Adams called it a crisis and one that'll cost his city $1 billion.
We had no heads up that these buses were coming.
We kept on saying, we need help, Washington, D.C.
Tonight, the mayor of the largest city in the country saying the migrant crisis is pushing the city to the brink.
Look, I know that a lot of the images that New Yorkers saw on the news were shocking.
The fact that we were able to build shelters that quickly is an insane feat. There were days where I was getting calls that we were getting 500 to 800 people that night.
We would continue to see 8,000, 10,000, 18,000, 20,000 people in care.
You know, those families that I first met, they were very confused.
At our peak, we had 14 buses land at the same time.
There were sometimes buses that were just dropping people off and leaving people there.
In our peak weeks, we had more than 4,000 people coming each week and asking for shelter.
We had up to 1,000 people in a given day come through the front doors of the arrival center.
There were weeks where we were opening 3, 4, 5 hotels a week.
The migrants who came through our care come from more than 150 countries.
They had gone through this arduous journey and then put on a bus for 3 days with little food and little support, and now they were in the city of New York.
This crisis was really hoisted on us. We didn't have a choice but to respond and to bring the best of city employees and all of New York City to it. We really had to respond with both compassion and competence.
This is who we are as New Yorkers. We got you. We're going to provide the services you need. We don't have people in our shelters who are not being fed, who are not spending days on the floor sleeping with children. That is not who we are. That is not who we're going to be as a city.
We had a North Star that we established literally on day one of what became the crisis. And that was something that we held in our hearts the whole way through. And that was that no child coming to our city would ever sleep outside. In New York City, we would always care for all of the children and families coming to us. And that was true throughout the crisis.
When I think back to the beginning of this crisis in the spring of 2022, it was kind of incredible the way that this slowly started to build. Busloads of people started to arrive.
A lot of people didn't want to come to New York. When they would come across the border, they were given a few options. Chicago, New York were some of those limited options. They may not have had family here. There may not have been community here.
Governor Abbott announced that he would be sending buses directly to the city of New York, which is when we responded with our team here at Port Authority, and we welcomed the first buses to arrive here.
We didn't know whether or not they wanted to be here. We didn't know whether or not they were being bused forcibly. It was almost like your brain was trying to put all of that together. Like, could this be possible? Was this the United States in 2022?
Among social services responsibilities is the Department of Homeless Services, which is the primary sheltering agency for the city. So during the asylum crisis, we were playing a very significant role in sheltering the new arrivals to New York City. It was probably, for DHS, it was in, I would say, probably May, June of 2022. We first started seeing people come in April, and we were in the that's unusual, let's see what happens. And then by summer of 2022, I think it was really sort of widely understood across the city that we were looking at something that was unlike any emergency we'd ever had before.
The mayor declared an emergency.
Now to the growing migrant crisis, the mayor of New York City declaring a state of emergency.
The mayor declared a state of emergency to deal with the busloads of asylum seekers who've been sent to the Big Apple.
This is a humanitarian crisis that started with violence and instability in South America. And it is being accelerated by American political dynamics. Thousands of asylum seekers have been bussed into New York City and simply dropped off without notice, coordination, or care.
Some people were pregnant, some people had not had their diabetes or hypertension medication, or people who had been injured along their journey had no medical attention provided to them at the border, which they should have.
We did learn some things pretty early on, though. We learned that the buses that were carrying people, the people had been through a great deal before they got here. A lot of their needs were on the medical side. We had a woman that got off of one of the buses that was in active labor.
A family came off the bus and their 5-year-old was with them. The 5-year-old came off and immediately had a seizure. But what had happened was that at the border they had taken away his epilepsy medicine because it wasn't American epilepsy medicine. And when he got off, it was a stressful journey. This poor 5-year-old had a seizure and hit his head.
We saved his life that day. We helped the pregnant woman that was in labor to have a safe delivery of her new baby. But that taught us that we need to be ready for whatever was coming next so that we can make sure that in our city, when people arrive to us, we would welcome them and we'd be able to care for them in the way that they would need.
There certainly was some tragedies. We had some people commit suicide, the long-term effects of the trauma that children and families experience, also the workers. I remember that there were people who would have to hear some of the story of what people went through, and the city workers were traumatized from what they had to hear.
I had people tell me that during their journey up here, they saw a loved one get shot in the head and killed next to them.
There was a healthy component of counseling that needed to happen. We needed to have therapists on site, not just for the individuals who were applying for status, but also for the lawyers and the other teams that were working there to help them. They were listening to some incredibly difficult stories, and it was hard. It was hard.
It was quite a lot of work. In fact, it was when the mayor and I took a trip down to El Paso to visit with the mayor there and the nonprofits responding, that the mayor turned to me and he said, you know what, we need a blueprint, because this is just going to continue to grow.
He wanted to talk to the federal troops that were down there, the Customs and Border Patrol individuals. We had an opportunity to go and tour some of the base camps that they had near the border. That's where you saw the tents, right, which we ended up putting around the city as well. And we saw how people were being taken care of. We understood, the processing. Are they screened for any sort of health issues when they come across the border? So it was an opportunity for him to actually see all of it, to talk to the humanitarian groups that were on the ground, understand what advice they were giving, to tell them what was in New York, what was going on in New York, how difficult it might be if they came to New York.
Mayor Eric Adams is set to begin a 4-day trip to Mexico, Ecuador, and Colombia.
This trip has been an eye-opener for me.
That was Mayor Adams on Saturday at the tail end of a 4-day swing through Latin America that took him to Mexico, Ecuador, and Colombia.
If you really want to understand the full journey, you don't start from when they get to the border. You start from their home country, what is going on there, and how are they getting to the border. We had heard these stories of individuals going through the jungle to get here and having just extraordinarily difficult moments and times, people being accosted, assaulted in different ways, robbed, losing their possessions, but they were coming through that.
This is all very new, right? The shelters that we design and build for coastal storms, those are really built for people to stay in for 48, 72 hours. We're now building shelters for people to live in for 6, 7, 8 months, even longer, where now you have health issues you need to worry about. You need to worry about people's laundry. You need to worry about feeding people for that duration of time. You need to think about showers and sanitary conditions, right? It's a whole magnitude large of a problem that you need to solve for.
We were hard pressed to respond. We did not have vacancy rate to absorb large numbers coming in at one time. So that was really a challenge. One of the things that was really important for DHS and for DSS as we worked through all of this was to make sure that we were maintaining our responsibility to provide safe and stable shelter for everybody in need. That included the new arrivals, but also included New Yorkers who found themselves in a moment of emergency.
The old Roosevelt Hotel has officially been reopened as a processing center for all migrants arriving in the city.
Walking into that large waiting room today at the Roosevelt Hotel in Midtown, it was hard not to be struck by the magnitude of this migration crisis.
The Roosevelt Hotel, as we affectionately called it, the new Ellis Island, became truly the central point and the focal point for where we brought our newest New Yorkers into New York City, greeted them, gave them basic medical care, helped to figure out what it is that they needed to do. There were a lot of individuals that came in that were able to be reticketed while they were at the Roosevelt Hotel, you know, sort of a one-stop shop where we could get them ready for whatever the next steps on their journey were going to be.
And Mayor Adams announced today that Floyd Bennett Field in South Brooklyn will be used to shelter asylum seekers. Adams today called on the federal government to issue an emergency declaration to free up more space and funding to manage the crisis.
So after the cafeteria, we start entering our housing area. So these are the sanitation area, which is comprised of the showers, restrooms. And then at the very end, we also have a south gate, check-in, badge in, badge out area.
We have different size pods for different size families. We are currently in tent 1, and I will show you a 3-person pod. Each pod would have 3 cots, 2 to 3 cots, depending on if the family had a child or not, and a lamp, as well as all the linens. The first opening here is the R&R housekeeping. This middle was the Sodexo laundry, where items get laundered. And the third door there was our inventory supply.
There was about 19 sites that were big, massive, either hotels or sites like this. But we ran the gamut, again, of vacant office buildings that we converted into housing, hotels, sites like this, a cruise terminal, and really tried to be as creative as possible when thinking about housing migrants.
We have a infrastructure here in New York City that is compared to none. The scale of our response matched the scale of 230,000 people coming here. And then I think the scope and the depth of it in terms of what we were able to put into place was kind of extraordinary when you think about it.
This coordination from local nonprofits, elected officials, all of my team, education, all the human services coming together. Because the reason we're doing this is because we're all immigrants. We all came from somewhere.
Every agency became involved at some point.
In the very beginning, we just borrowed people from different agencies, we borrowed people from City Hall, we borrowed whoever we could to help us sort of coordinate this.
It took a lot of coordination, dedication of city workers, as well as volunteers, as well as even migrants and asylum seekers helping each other.
I cannot stress enough the extent to which DHS came close to the breaking point. We were standing them up, sites that were operated by, agency staff working overtime on a volunteer basis. So having other agencies step up, H&H, Emergency Management Agency, the Housing Recovery Office, HPD, right, really made it a whole of government effort, that this was not something that DHS, could, would, or should be able to handle on its own.
Health and hospitals had stood up more than 15 humanitarian centers, or HERCs.
Never forget spending the night inside a HERC, talking to those newly arrivals, believing they would be left behind, and saying to them, I'm not going to leave you behind.
It was the coldest night of that particular winter. He stayed in it was a men's location. He stayed there, he talked to them about their dreams, he talked to them about why they came, he talked to them about the beauty and joy and hope of New York, and that, we were there to support them in any way that we could.
Here because we had to go through the same things you had to go through.
Los tres están aquí porque ellos hicieron las cosas que ustedes están haciendo ahora, ellos hicieron. Entonces ellos comenzaron con ustedes.
Yes. Shams was homeless.
Él no tenía casa antes tampoco, él era uno de estos.
The assemblyman had a hard life, and now he is a top elected government official.
él cuando estaba creciendo tenía la vida bien dura. Era el político elegido por la gente.
I had to go through the same thing as you.
Y él también todo tipo, las mismas cosas que ustedes están yendo, tuvo que ir por las mismas cosas. Trabajo y difícil para su mamá.
So we're here today to spend the night with you to let you know we're all brothers.
Está aquí hoy noche, van a pasar la noche aquí ellos, para mostrarles a todos ustedes que estamos
As that sort of tide of people are coming in, it is hard to sort of think like, how are we going to keep up with this? This can't go on forever. And it was always amazing to me, most of us who had been working on this problem together, none of us had worked together before. And yet, somehow we were able to make it work. I remember we put out a call for city volunteers, and we had thousands of people who work for the city volunteer to work in these shelters. One of the biggest problems I had as a leader here in this agency was getting people to rest. You have people that just really want to do the job and they don't not want to be there.
So we provided a variety of services such as soccer games to get both communities, the Hispanic and the Muslim community, together. We also provided religious services. So on Fridays it was Muslim prayers at 1 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays Catholic and Christian Mass.
Many of us are immigrant or children of immigrants ourselves. And I myself immigrated to this city when I was a child, and I wanted to make sure to be here to welcome those families when they arrived.
I think that's why we were so puzzled sometimes when people would say that we weren't, pro-immigrant or we weren't thinking about this. It's in our blood, literally it's in our DNA.
For us, this work was personal, right? Because we understand fundamentally what it means to leave your home, to leave an entire country and come to a new country with no connections, no job, to try to figure it out. And for them to be in our care, it was an awesome responsibility that we all took incredibly seriously.
I'm incredibly proud of New York and what we did to step up to the plate, but I think it also created a dangerous narrative that is contrary to the truth about immigrants, right? Immigrants are a net positive for this country. They create jobs, they don't take jobs. They are often more the victim of crimes than the perpetrator of crimes. And yet, this moment and the lack of support from the federal government and less support from the state created a situation that allowed that to turn it on its head. And I think that's really dangerous, because I think one of the things that has made this country so strong and so great is that we are a welcoming country. And so while I'm so proud of New York for living up to those ideals, I was incredibly disappointed that our country did not.
When I spoke to the men who are here, they shared the same energy. We want to come here, we want to work, we want to pursue the American dream. We're thankful to the people of New York City. I heard that over and over again. We're thankful to the people of New York City. We're doing our job. We need the national government and Congress to do their job.
We thought that this might be something where we would deal with this for a couple of months and then the federal government would step in and would help us manage this. We learned pretty quickly that wasn't the case.
There's some deafening silence that's coming from other parts of government. You would think that we don't have a crisis in the city of New York right now.
When an emergency exceeds the capacity of a local jurisdiction to manage that emergency, by law, you were supposed to turn to the state and then the federal government for help. Well, we got nominal help from the state. We had turned to the federal government, and all they offered was criticism. And so it was really left to the city to manage this crisis.
And all those who criticized me did not spend one night there, did not meet any buses, but they were able to tell us what we've done wrong, when in fact we had 237,000 migrants and asylum seekers that came to the city, and 90% of them have taken the next step on their journey because of this administration.
We created an asylum seeker legal assistance clinic that was award-winning across the country. It was a model for how cities could stand up and help the asylum seekers in the most tangible of ways. Through that clinic, we were able to complete in excess of 100,000 applications for all sorts of immigration-related issues, whether it was an application for asylum seeker status, work authorization, any of those things.
It was inhumane how asylum seekers and people were being used as political pawns. But I was also calling on the federal government, President Biden's administration, to do more to support cities like New York City, sanctuary cities, and to not allow this to spiral.
We didn't get the support and information we asked for. And now, New York City is being forced to bear far more than its share of this national crisis caused by political motivation.
The mayor has said time and time again that if the federal government does not step in and help, this will ultimately impact city services. And during a city council hearing yesterday, the mayor says that this has already started to happen.
We didn't expect what was going to come next. I had a conversation with the mayor and some of the senior leadership in the fall of 22 when we really knew this was becoming real. And I said to the mayor and the core leadership team, I said, we have to pressure the state and the federal government to do more and help. I said, we need to get them to the table. And the mayor said to me on this call, we have spoken to the governor, we've spoken to the president. They said, wait until after the midterms and the cavalry will come. Well, the midterms came and went. The cavalry never came.
I don't remember there being any communication between the governor's office in Texas and New York City. I think that the reason that there wasn't any communication was because they were trying to create chaos. Coming to terms with that this didn't have to be this bad and somebody could have helped us is a frustrating big challenge for me, but it's a lesson that I think that I've learned from this experience.
Within 24 hours of a person getting here, we would ask them, is there someplace else in the country that you wanted to go? Is there someplace else where you have family, where you have community? And we would immediately get them back on a bus so they could get to that location.
I felt like things were starting to take a turn when I was in the arrival center one day and not all the chairs were full. We'd gotten used to the fact that the arrival center would be so busy. They'd walk into the front lobby, which had chairs everywhere, and people would be sitting in every single chair. The day when that started to not be the case, when we started to see empty chairs, that's when I felt like the tide was shifting.
It's really bittersweet. We went from having 3,000 guests to now we're down to 8. It's bittersweet in the sense that I miss them. I want to know how they're doing. I want to know where they're at right now. I worry also because a lot of them were worried here. So I still have like their panic and their anxiety with me because I want to know and I want to make sure that they were able to reach their dreams to the max capacity.
This crisis and every crisis I've been involved in has really shown both the care, the compassion, the ingenuity of city employees.
Everyone that was involved in this knew that this is something that they wanted to do because this is what it meant to, A, be in public service, but also what it meant to be a city that welcomes immigrant communities.
I guarantee you, a decade from now, a decade and a half from now, one of those kids is going to walk across a stage somewhere receiving a Nobel Prize, a Pulitzer Prize, a science prize. They're going to do something, and they're going to talk about what New York City did for them 10, 15, 20 years ago.
I would hope that the legacy is that in a moment that was unprecedented, New York City stood up. And we didn't do it alone. With our faith-based partners, our community-based organizations, with just regular New Yorkers who cared.
I'm gonna have a grandchild, and that grandchild is gonna be on a school trip. And they're gonna go to an exhibit that's about immigration and about the waves of immigration that have happened throughout time. And they're gonna talk about 230,000 people who came to New York City. And she's gonna be like, I think I heard stories about my grandma being a part of that.
There were certainly hiccups in operations, but I think at no time did we lose sight of the fact that we are an immigrant city and that immigrants make us stronger.
I think 20 years from now, there will be hundreds of thousands of people in our country that will remember when they came through the front doors of New York City's arrival center, or when their family members told them the story of when they came through the front door of New York City's arrival center. And I think they'll remember that as when they began a better life in our country. I think that will be the legacy of what we've done.
We've had people who've reconnected with family or friends elsewhere. We have people who've moved into apartments in Queens, in the Bronx, in Manhattan.
The individuals that took that journey, they were determined that they were going to get to New York no matter what. They didn't quit, they didn't stop, they didn't turn back.
It's almost an uncanny feeling as you walk through here and you think about at one time we could have up to 3,000 people were here spread out. Many people are now on the next step of their journey, and we're going to continue to do the best we can to deal with these extremely challenging times. This is the closing of this site is a signal that we did our job, and it is imperative that we start a new chapter. Generations from now, there will be many Americans who will trace their stories back to this moment in time. Grandchildren who will recall the day their grandparents arrived here in New York City and found compassion, not cruelty, a place to lay their head, a warm meal, a chance at a better future. Thank you, New York, for doing the right thing.